Guilty as charged. Guilty as charged.
Guilty as charged.
Guilty as charged. That's my guy.
Hey, what is up, everybody? Welcome to the Guilty as Charged podcast. My name is Steven, and I am the host. We said this was the most crazy 53-man roster that we were trying to predict, and boy, did it turn out to be just that. So many things to get into on the initial release, which took the Chargers an extra 3 hours past the deadline. Actually, I think it was 4 hours. So it was what a day. We got a trade as well, surprising cuts, surprising additions. So many things to get into today. Have to give a quick shout out to our longtime listener, Caleb.
Let's go, Caleb.
His wife is pregnant, moving from Charleston to Fresno. So welcome to the Central Valley, and big congratulations. Hope to be joining your ranks sometime soon in our own life.
Yeah, that's awesome, dude. I am so excited to talk about this 53 because everybody was really wrong on this one. There are some that like we debated and it made sense, and some things were like, okay, maybe that. But then there's some other moves I didn't see coming at all. So this is fun. It's not just like last year where it's like, well, the thing happened and we were pretty close. This was like, screw you guys. Here's everything. And like you said, we went into this going, I don't want to predict this. This is impossible. Even then, I felt like we had a pretty good handle on this. And then we'll get to the defense later. Holy cow. I mean, we have special teams news, for God's sake, today. We have a trade. We have Najee Harris. All the stuff we have to talk about today. It threw me for a loop.
Yeah, there's so many different layers here, and we'll get into all of this. We've been pretty good, pretty spot on with the roster predictions over the last few years. I think last year you ended up at 52.
Depends how you count it. I ended up saying 51 out of 53, but it was just Neiman on IR and then Jefferson on. So I guess I did have 52 names right. But
yeah. So I ended up at 51
this year. Don't even ask me my score this year, guys. It's in the 30s. My Asian grandmother's gonna beat me.
Yeah, the grade for this year is definitely lower than that. So it is what it is. We'll dive into all of that. We are going to go position by position here. So we know that there's obviously certain things that you guys are going to want to talk about more so than the other ones. We'll get into all of that. Before we begin, I should say, excuse me. I should give a quick shout out to our friends over at Prize Picks, the best and easiest way to consume daily fantasy sports. Obviously, baseball season is in full swing. Football season is right around the corner. There is an actual college football weekend this weekend. I will be at the Rose Bowl to see my University of Utah Utes take on the UCLA Bruins, and you best believe I will be taking part of Prize Picks as part of the action. So go download the app, whatever app store you use, Prize Picks. Use the code GUILTY at checkout for a deposit match up to $50 on your first $5 lineup. Again, that is the Prize Picks app, code GUILTY at checkout for a deposit match up to $50 on your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. Okay, so we are going to start us off tonight with the quarterback situation. Not a huge surprise here, but Tyler, your thoughts on Trey Lance officially winning the backup quarterback spot?
Yeah, that's awesome. Great for him. Great to see how he progressed. I mentioned a couple of days ago that the last time he played a preseason game, not with the Chargers, he had 7 turnovers. And just in the entire preseason with the Chargers, which is 4 games, he had no turnover-worthy plays. It was the highest ADOT in the preseason, his lowest pressure to sack rate. He earned it for a variety of reasons. And also Taylor Heineke didn't play that well. So these two, that's fantastic. You hope for a Taylor Heineke trade, but we all watched it. His value went down every snap. And so they just clearly could not find a way to trade him. They have these two. It makes sense. No surprise here.
Yeah, I started to get on this when I watched at practice, and the ball just comes off Trey Lance's arm differently, right? And that's not a surprise. Trey Lance is a guy who, went third overall in the draft for a reason. Obviously, it did not work out in San Francisco. But even that practice, Heineke just looked like the timing was not, it was not where you want it to be for a guy of his stature and his veteran ability. It just looked off, and that continued through the bulk of the summer. And unfortunately, this is just a guy who has not played particularly well. I'm going to be interested to see who they choose to be on the practice squad, they're gonna have a quarterback arm on the practice squad. Most teams have 3 quarterbacks, sometimes 4, depending on the situation. But the bulk of the teams will have 2. You know, if you do 2 quarterbacks on the 53, you usually have one on the practice squad. So I'm okay with either one. If they want Heineke back because he's the veteran in the room, I'm okay with that. Obviously, as a vested veteran, he would have the ability to go out and sign somewhere else. I just don't know really like what kind of market there is for him.
Right.
I was told the Chargers tried to trade him, but again, there was no market for him. There were not many teams out there trying to trade for this kind of resume from the summer. So gonna be very interesting to see who they choose on the practice squad. Is it one of these two? Is it a different player? That remains to be seen.
Yeah, we'll definitely see there. I'm okay with either because I understand why you'd go with either if you're trying to run scout team, you're trying to run as much as you can with this practice squad group or whatever. I think it could be Taylor Heineke. I just think he can throw more of a consistent thing at your defense to see. But DJU is clearly the more interesting, intriguing developmental player. And given their success with Trey Lance so far, I understand why they'd go with him. And we saw in that last game, even though like the middle portion wasn't great for DJU, that ending to the first half, the ending of the second half, he saw some really good stuff. I think if it weren't for that, we'd say, yeah, it's probably Taylor Heineke, unless he wants to go elsewhere. But given the growth that they saw in that game, I understand why they'd be confident to go, you know what, let's go for it. Like kind of fresh new room here other than Herbert.
Yeah, and I think that probably would be my preference because, there's just this strategy, I think, of trying to develop a long-term quarterback situation going. And DJ, for all of his faults, like there's a lot of arm talent here. Like some of the throws that he made in his limited action is like, okay, this guy can definitely, sling it deep for sure. And Trey Lance is going to be a free agent next year. So you kind of want to balance like long-term developmental project with some continuity. You keep DJ around. I think that's probably the best solution there. But again, I'm fine if Heineke is the guy in the practice squad. I think that's fine.
Yeah.
Too.
Yep.
All right. Next up, running back situation. Definitely a big surprise here. Najee Harris is activated off the NFI list. I didn't know really how much to buy Joe Ortiz's comments that he was like hopefully trending towards week 1. We'll see if that part actually comes true. But obviously great news to have Najee trending in the right direction here on the roster. As a result, the Chargers decided to move on from Kamani Vidal and Rocket Sanders, as well as Naeem Miller-Hines and Jarrett Patterson. So just 3 running backs on the initial 53-man roster. We'll see what happens with Najee, but what do you make of their thought process here with this group?
I'll just start with Najee Harris. It's great to see that there's actual progress, or at least some confidence in his progress. I'm still doubtful that he's good to go week 1 and will actually play week 1 because that is a much shorter, even turn to week 1 than some other teams. That's a long way to go. He's not been participating in team drills or 7-on-7 or 11-on-11 or whatever. It's just been working off to the side, working on hand-eye coordination drills. It's a long way to go, but it could indicate that maybe by week 3 he does return, or even week 2 maybe he returns. But either way, it's positive. The surprise is obviously with the rest of the running back room, because we highlighted each of these running backs in different ways and how they were either like contributing or playing well or developing. I did not expect all 3 to not make it. Even if if you told me Najee Harris was cleared and good to go, or was trending towards it like he has been, and obviously they kept him around, didn't put him on NFI. Even if you told me that, I would have said, okay, it's still those 3 and another running back. I would not have expected all 3 of them to be cut.
Yeah.
The biggest one here, I think, for most Chargers fans is Rocket Sanders. I think, we predicted Vidal to not make it. We thought it was maybe more of an injury thing. It could be, but they obviously just cut him outright. With Sanders, I think that's where it's a little bit of like heart versus like brain kind of thing. And there's some other players we'll talk about that too.
Yeah.
When it comes to like the heart, like he did the best he could, and the line was terrible, and he did the best that he could and looked like he was the best of the running backs in terms of pure runner. If you don't have Najee, or if you have Najee, you feel decent about him as a runner. But then there's like kind of the brain part of it, which is simply look at the players that they kept. Granted, I didn't think like Williamson, for example, would make the roster, or Eric Rodgers. But like looking specifically at Marlo Wax and Nico Reed, let's say, you put those two up and Rocket Sanders, which UDFA are you keeping? Sanders is the third guy that I'd mention. Because if you look at it, like imagine you're not the Chargers or you are the Chargers and a guy becomes available and his name is Rocket Sanders. And you look at the numbers and you say, okay, this is a UDFA who fell for whatever reason. I'm very curious why he did fall in the draft as well, by the way, because like he was supposed to go day 3.
Yeah.
Right? So
I think that's just a volume thing, honestly. Like there were so many running backs this year.
Totally.
That's just my opinion.
Yeah.
I don't know if there was anything health related or other stuff like that.
Sure. So like he's a UDFA who fell for whatever reason, but he didn't get drafted. He missed almost all of the summer, and he finally got onto the field once the preseason started. He had 3.6 yards per carry. He doesn't play special teams. Like at the end of the day, are you as a Chargers fan going, hell yeah, let's go get that guy? If you had no idea who he was, would you say, yes, let's go get that guy? I don't think so. Now, we as Chargers fans think of the running backs that were on the team, he was the best running back, pure runner-wise. But for all the other reasons, including him not playing special teams really at all, I don't think he's a player that I would be actively seeking, whereas you had to keep some other players. Now, again, we'll get to some other DBs that I was surprised they kept. Yeah. But I understand why they wouldn't have prioritized Rocket Sanders, because ultimately, purely looking at the stat sheet, the numbers and things like that, and just kind of his overall profile, especially as a running back, he's not a player you have to prioritize keeping around. But I am still surprised there's not a fourth running back on here.
Yeah, I'm definitely surprised there's not a fourth running back on here. When it came out that they were going to release Rocket, I was like, okay, Kamani is safe then. Because of his role in special teams, because he just offers something a little bit different, from these other backs. But for me, like, I think Rocket Sanders is of this group. I've said this previously, but I think of this group, if Najee were not going to be on the roster to start the first 4 games, Rocket is the next guy up for me that I would like carrying the football. And the problem with that is that he's too redundant with Omarion, Najee, and Haskins. You can't have 4 guys who are all big bruising backs. And I know that like
sure,
2 of those 3 are explosive and can hit home runs in Hampton and Sanders. Mm-hmm. But you can't have that. That's too much redundancy in one room. So when it came out that Sanders was not making it, I was like, okay, either Harris is back or they're keeping Kamani because of his special teams, because he can offer you something different. Mm-hmm. And then it comes out that they're releasing both and Najee is back. So it's definitely a lot of moving parts here. There's a very good chance that Rocket is able to still impact the season, especially if Najee's not specifically ready for week 1. If they activated Najee because he's more of like a week 3 edition instead of a week 1, then we'll see Rocket in the first 2 games and he'll probably play a little bit, or Kamani could play a little bit here. So for anybody necessarily that's concerned about these players, being claimed, teams are not claiming running backs. It's just that's not what you are using a roster claiming on. Like there's every team in the league is looking for pass rushers, receivers, corners, offensive linemen. That's usually where you prioritize roster claims, unless your running back situation is like a dire and you want to go get, like a Damian Martinez who was released today or one of these guys. But I just don't think that there's enough there for either of these players to go out and be claimed. It's just, for their purposes and for the Chargers purposes, the bad offensive line was probably a good thing, because now it means that they're back in the practice squad.
Yeah. So for all the discussion of like waiver claims and stuff like that, not that he can't be claimed, it's possible, but I think it's unlikely. We got messages about like, hey, what's like Nico Reed's status? Like checking in on him. Like how's that going? How is he gonna make it? Like what's the status there? There was a lot of attention on a Nico Reed, for example, and of course he made it, and that's partially why. Never was asked about Rocket Sanders at all. Yeah. I understand why, but he's a player that just was not like clearly on a high priority list for the people that asked.
Yeah, for players who are being claimed from a waiver decision like that, you got to have some eyeballs on you in terms of the preseason. Like if Rocket Sanders had played in the Hall of Fame game and had an awesome Hall of Fame game, that probably would have done him a lot of favors. Kamani is the first running back in the Hall of Fame game history to have multiple touchdowns, and nobody really cared. Like, it just, you got to have the eyeballs, you got to have the big splash plays.
Yeah.
And I thought that Rocket played well, but making the 53 with Najee it's just not a tenable situation. I think you got to have somebody different there.
Yeah.
Okay, so moving on, Scott Matlock obviously makes the roster. That was never in doubt. He did not play. He did not suit up in the 49ers game. So I saw earlier in the chat, in our Discord, on Twitter, people were like, Scott Matlock's not going to make it. They told you what they thought on Saturday night when they did not even suit him up. So he is your starting fullback who can moonlight at defensive tackle, essentially gives you some special teams flexibility as well. But he's here. Tight end wise, we had Tucker Fisk making it, but you and I messaged back and forth this morning. That was like the one that I was most iffy about. Well, he might be their long snapper for the first 4 games. So, unfortunately for the Chargers, with the Josh Harris injury, that might have secured Tucker Fisk's roster spot a little bit here.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that in a second, but for now, Will Dissly, Tyler Conklin, Aronde Gadsden, and Tucker Fisk are your 4 tight ends. Steve O'Klotz, Thomas Yasmin are released. I think they'll bring back Yasmin just because it's an international player responsibility. So he doesn't count against the practice squad per se. It's basically just like a free spot. So we'll see what happens there. But any initial thoughts on the fullback / tight end room?
Yeah, so with Scott Matlock, we knew that was over when he got a special jersey. And I was like, oh, okay, gotcha. that ain't changing. He's on the roster. Okay. Yeah. The real one for us was Tucker Fisk. Like, is he somebody that they would keep? Because we'll talk about Tony Jefferson later. Not that he was Fisk was not waiver exempt. So that's maybe also partially why he's still here. But I understand why you could play the roster game with Tucker Fisk. I don't think Tucker Fisk was getting claimed, although someone did ask about him today, I think. But he's such an integral part of your team. And now they've cut David Sharp and Branson Taylor. Again, we'll get to that. They are down blockers. They are down Rashawn Slater. They are down backup offensive linemen. Let's just cut one of our best blockers in Tucker Fisk. I did not see that. No. And it was a weird hill I thought I was going to die on. But thankfully they stuck with him. How long is he on the team for? Oh, I don't know. But this is a player who's going to play every week. You pointed out that Tucker Fisk has an actual statistical positive impact on the run game when he's in there. You can see it on film. He looked fantastic on film. And he's frankly just a better blocker than Scott Matlock is. Again, I don't know why Matlock is on here, but whatever. He is. Fisk was just clearly such an important part of this offense and this identity. And if you're going Najee Harris, Hampton, Haskins, and these guys, get your best blockers out there. And Fisk is one of them.
Yeah, absolutely agree there. Even throughout all of the preseason games, you watch the 5 linemen, they're all not doing well. And then here's Tucker Fisk driving his man 3 yards down the field.
Pretty much.
It's just like, okay, if you want to know why that guy's making the roster, that's why he's making the roster. So, it definitely is a situation where it just fits a need. It fits the culture. Warren Sharp tweeted out that the Chargers ran 3 receiver sets at the 4th lowest level in the preseason. They were running multiple tight end sets at an extremely high rate because that's how this team wants to play football. That's how Jim Harbaugh has always wanted to play football. We've talked about this previously before, but this team was running 4 verts with 4 tight ends and Scott Matlock out there. They want to play big body, multiple tight end sets, and Tucker Fisk is definitely one of those guys. And I know he's obviously not a great receiver, but I feel like he never drops the football. He always catches it when it's thrown his way, even if it's an absolute laser beam from Justin Herbert and he's got a defender draped all over him. So that plus now the long snapper ability, which I didn't even know about. I think it's just a no-brainer that you keep this guy. Tyler Conklin's an okay blocker. Aronde Gadsden has definitely made a lot of strides, more so than I would have thought already at this point. Yeah. But with Will Dissly and Tucker Fisk, those two are impact blockers that can really help elevate your run game. You have a rookie running back. Who knows with Najee coming back? You obviously mentioned the limited bodies at offensive line. It just makes too much sense to keep Fisk around, for the season this year.
Yeah. When they signed Najee Harris, and I feel the same way after they drafted Marion Hampton. Okay. So you invest what I thought. It wasn't as big of a contract in the end, but you invest in Najee Harris. You invest a high pick in Hampton. You have to do everything you possibly can to make that right. And it's the same for any player, right? You want it to work for that player. But when that's your big investment, go make it right. Go make sure that those decisions turn out great for your team. And Tucker Fisk helps you do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Looking up real quickly, people asking about Scott Matlock and his special teams role. So he actually was he had the 5th most special team snap on the Chargers last year with 231. That was right behind Troy Dye, Thule, Haskins, and Nick Neiman. So he played a ton on kick return, 70 snaps there, 56 snaps on punt return, a lot of field goal blocks, field goal kicks, stuff like that. So he was their 5th most active special teams player. Jasir Taylor, who we'll talk about in a little bit here, was 6th after that. So Scott Matlock, again, I don't think he should be given any more defensive tackle snaps. I'm good. But he plays a lot on fullback, a lot on special teams. That's why he's on the roster now.
Yeah. Before we move on, I just gotta say, you can stick with the wide receiver room thing up here, but we're at almost 1,400 of you guys here, and I appreciate that so much. Thank you on a, what is this, Tuesday? What day is it? On a Tuesday, you guys being here. Seriously, the chat is on fire. Everybody's here. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, definitely really appreciate you guys jumping in here. If you're just now joining us, we are going room by room here. I know that everybody wants to talk about Junior Colson, things like that. But we decided to go room position by position, and I think that just kind of makes more sense to us. And Tyler and I are both visual learners, so it just works out this way. Yeah. Okay, receiver room here. Again, no real surprises. I don't know how much time we want to spend on this one, but Ladd McConkey, Quentin Johnson, Keenan Allen, Trey Harris, Keandre Lambert-Smith, Darius Davis are your 6. Boy, am I sure glad that I get to watch Darius Davis return punts sometime soon after watching Saturday's fiasco. So that should be fun here. Brendan Rice, Jalen Reagor, Jalen Johnson, Jaquay Jackson, Luke Grimm, and Daylon Campbell obviously cut here. Again, I don't know how much we have to rehash the 6, but Tyler, they're going to keep at least 2 on the practice squad. How would you like to see that sorted out with this group?
I'm all in on Daylon Campbell and Jalen Reagor. Jalen Reagor, you need a somewhat veteran presence in there. These guys are not that. And he was ultimately very close to making it as of, end of July-ish. And then it didn't work
July
out.
31st, he would have been on it for sure.
Exactly. No, he was. And then he got hurt, and that's just the way it works. And then they signed Keenan Allen, and that cemented it. But I would like him out there. And then just give me Campbell. He clearly has a rapport with all the quarterbacks on the roster, and not Heineke anymore, but the guys that were throwing into him in the Hall of Fame game that did connect with him. Not Hall of Fame game, 49ers game. He looked great out there. He looks like a player, even like if Jalen Reagor goes, that's your next guy. So I know you might want like a Luke Grimm, Jalen Reagor thing, because you have more of a vertical guy than maybe more of like a route runner slot guy. But to me, the 2 best guys are Reagor and Campbell by a large margin. And to me, I would get them out there and make that your practice squad.
Yeah, I agree there. I think Campbell, honestly, there's a decent chance that he is probably your best contested catch player in this group. The catches that he can make are insane. Like I saw it up close and personal when I went to training camp. He's definitely a contested catch guy. We got to work on the tracking ability a little bit, but he can definitely, go up and get it. Jalen Reagor, I think for special teams value, he could be your backup punt returner, backup kick returner, on special teams, and Justin Herbert definitely trusts him to make plays out there. If they do keep 3, we'll see what happens there. I know there's a lot of love out for Luke Grimm, but I think for the most part, it's probably going to be 2, maybe 3, but we'll see what happens there.
Yep.
All right, offensive line, another surprise of the day. The Chargers have traded for Austin Deculus, I think is how that is officially said, according to the Chargers website. Trading a 2027 conditional 7th round pick. So I didn't even know you could do that. But, it's kind of very similar to the Elijah Molden trade at this time last year. So right now they have 8 on the offensive line on the 53. Joe Alt, Zion Johnson, Bradley Bozeman, Mekhi Becton, Trey Pipkins are your starters. Andre James is your backup center. Jamari Sawyer is your swing everything except for center. And then Deculus. So ultimately, the Chargers did decide to move on from Branson Taylor and David Sharp, as well as Carson Barnhart, Josh Kaltenberger, Corey Stewart, Ryan Nelson, and Nash Jones. A lot of moving parts here. everybody listening to this that has listened to this for a long time knows how I felt about the Branson Taylor pick. I've been very critical of their process with that. That being said, I'm still surprised that they did actually cut him. This is a guy that you drafted. There were players that they were considering, including a guy who was cut today that they could potentially bring in, Issa Poole from the Chiefs. You start him at guard. He's a swing tackle now. Like I'm surprised that they ultimately decided to move on from him, because it seems like they were at least invested enough in his development to say, hey man, like it hasn't been great at guard. Let's try you at another position. It just seemed like this would have been a redshirt kind of season for him. And this is the offensive line team, supposedly. So I'm a little surprised that Branson Taylor was cut. I am anxious to go watch some Austin Deculus tape. I don't really want to rush to make any judgments there, but I'm glad they at least like went out and were aggressive in adding to the room.
Yeah, so I'll start with Deculus, or however you want to say it, some whatever Greek name that is or something. Sounds like someone that fought with Leonidas. The numbers aren't great, so as you said, not going to rush to conclusions. Granted, there's not a whole lot of film on him either, and I don't know if I want the lineman that the Texans didn't want. That usually is a little bit nerve-wracking. So we'll see how that goes. You never know, though, right? The Titans didn't want Elijah Molden. That turned out fine. Granted, we're talking about the offensive line, and we know how about that coaching staff. Branson Taylor is the most surprising, not a surprise, and I can't believe that I didn't stick with my gut, and we didn't stick with our gut, because in our pre-training camp 53, we said, dude, I don't know where this guy's going to play or when he's going to play, because you have this guy, and this was with Rashawn Slater healthy, of course. Right. We went, what? There's no reason to keep him on the roster other than redshirt, maybe even 2 years of developing, which isn't the worst thing, right? Like, of course, I want them to invest in interior offensive linemen that develop. He was so far behind. He's trying to learn guard. It's like, where the hell does he even play? And are you going to keep him over Tucker Fisk, who's going to play 20 snaps and special teams in a game or whatever he ends up doing? But then the Rashawn Slater injury, and then Mekhi Becton wasn't practicing, and David Sharp was signed and he wasn't playing that well. So it was like, well, I guess Branson Taylor's making it because they're trying him at tackle. And when you have backup offensive linemen, everybody says it, you got to find a way to play multiple positions. So maybe Branson Taylor's not like quite set yet, but they got to get him figured out, because look, you're on the team, dude. So you got to play multiple spots. And then they just cut him. And it's honestly a surprise to me, even though, again, in pre-training camp, we're like, I have no idea where this guy's going to play.
Right.
But still, after everything we had seen, we came to the logical conclusion that you got to keep him. We didn't think David Sharp was making it. He was a waiver exempt player. Fine. The numbers were bad anyway.
And Greg Roman basically called him out of shape in a press conference.
That
which like makes sense. He has not been with the team all spring and summer. I get it.
Right. I don't like dislike David Sharp because he was who he was. He's the guy who just signed off the street and had to figure out how to play in 2 days. That's not quite fair. But yeah, Branson Taylor not on here. Surprise. We will see. I don't know. I feel like there's something else here that's not happened yet. Once they did release Branson Taylor, I had a little like suspicion that maybe Carson Barnhart actually was going to make it as someone they felt was maybe a more pro-ready guard. I don't know. But I hope there's one more move here, because if I'm looking at it, you have Joe Alt, who's great. Becton should be good. I at least think Zion can be a good run blocker. I don't know about Pipkins and Bozeman as even high-end starters. They're not. Andre James is your backup. But Jamar, like, I hope there's one more move here. But we've spent so much time talking about the interior offensive line. We will move on, guys. I promise.
Yeah.
We spent so much time talking about this line because it just isn't set. It just wasn't ready. This line is not good enough. The depth is not good enough. And looking at this now, I am very glad that we did talk about these players over and over and over again. So the fans that are listening to us, and thank you for 1,500 of you being here now, the fans listening to us aren't like, oh, why'd they cut Branson Taylor and David Sharp? Because they were bad. And we've talked about it over and over and over again. No, this is not an interior offensive line podcast. This is an offensive line podcast. We don't forget our tackles. Anyway, I'm glad we discussed them, because this is the outcome. The outcome was the players that we've been talking about over and over and over again were not good enough for the Chargers.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with everything there. This is a group that has, we've struggled to wrap our arms around this entire offseason. And people were saying like, oh, like they traded for Austin Deculus, like they're set now. No, they're not. They are not set now. It's Tyler almost spits out his water there. There were actually like a lot of intriguing options that were cut for the Chargers today that they could have, went out and approached. I understand they wanted to, seek out somebody, and this decision to trade for Austin Deculus tells me that they were active and that they were trying to trade for some of these other players, and maybe the price tag was just not there. There are some players out there that have a lot of familiarity with the team that still makes sense, like Tyree Phillips, who I've talked about a lot, played for the Ravens, drafted by the Ravens, played for the Giants, knows Andy Bischoff very well. He's played all 4 positions. Him and Jamari could potentially like stabilize things a little bit here. So I would not rush to just like say, yeah, Austin Deculus is your swing tackle. I don't know enough about that. There were other people who are like rushing to the PFF grades. This is bad. What is this? I'm going to watch the tape and we'll see what happens. Apparently he had 2 regular season starts in 2023 for the Texans that were like pretty good. So we'll see. I don't want to rush to judge that, but I'm not comfortable with him being the outright swing tackle either.
Sure.
So we're kind of back in this position where Jamari is your swing everything, but you need somebody to bridge the gap between, Deculus and Jamari. And that's exactly where we are at. So maybe Deculus is a step above Branson Taylor and David Sharp. I think that's fair to say at this current point in time. But I still would like to see, whether it's a guard or a tackle, somebody else in here to bridge that gap. And almost every team out there is keeping 9 offensive linemen on the active roster. There are some teams out there that are keeping 11 on the 53-man roster that I saw today. So this is definitely not settled. This is definitely a room where you're going to go out and have some waiver claims tomorrow. Maybe, you sign some veterans who are, vested veterans like a Tyree Phillips, so you can just add right away. But this room is definitely not settled. They will not enter week 1 with 8 offensive linemen. They have to go make another move here to bridge that gap. And, we can talk about the ceiling overall as the group, but the depth of this room is simply not where it needs to be. And, credit to Joe Ortiz for making a trade and going out and ensuring that they could get somebody, but it's not done yet. They need at least one more body in here that I think is a competent offensive lineman.
Yeah, I think so too. So at this point, with Jamari being swing everything and Deculus being at least a swing tackle for now, are you looking more for guards at this point than tackles, or just any depth helps and Deculus shouldn't be considered safe? No, they traded for him, so I guess he is. But
I would say that Deculus is safe as offensive lineman number 9. I think I'm comfortable with that situation. If he's your healthy scratch each week, that's fine. We've talked about this. I still think that Jamari is best suited as a guard. I would like to see somebody who has tackle flexibility, and specifically somebody who could play right tackle. If they think that Jamari is your backup left tackle and your backup guard, that's fine with me. You need to go find somebody who can play right tackle. There's a thought process out there that, like, if anything happens to Trey Pipkins right now with this roster, that you would move Joe Alt back to right tackle and Jamari would be your left tackle. I want to avoid that situation from unfolding at all costs. Joe Alt should not move positions probably ever again in his career. He should be your left tackle going forward. So I definitely want somebody who can come in and play right tackle at minimum. If that guy can also give you guard flexibility, great. And that's why, to me, Tyree Phillips still makes a lot of sense.
Sure.
I'll have to go look at like some of the guards that got cut today, but this is a room that needs to be added to. Like they will not be going into this season with 8 offensive linemen. You just can't justify that.
Totally agree. And I think it was yesterday you were kind of going back and forth on this idea that, like, some fans think that somebody cut today is going to be a starter over Zion, over Trey, over Bradley Bozeman. Not that those guys maybe can't play better than, say, a Bradley Bozeman, but the Chargers are unlikely to find or even go after anybody to, like, these guys are set. The 5 starters are set. It's about finding depth at this point to help them keep the season afloat.
People are freaking out a little bit about my Rashawn Slater comment there, or not comment, I guess.
Right.
the way that I know that this regime operates at left tackle, I think Joe Alt is your left tackle of the future, guys. Like I'm not trying to disrespect Slater. I love Rashawn Slater. His signed jersey is hanging up behind me. I spent a lot of money on that thing. I just think that this regime is going to want the better left tackle at left tackle, and we have no idea what Rashawn is going to look like going forward.
Yeah.
No idea when he is going to be playing. I'm not trying to disrespect Rashawn. I think he can still be a very, very high-end offensive tackle, but the way that this regime operates at left tackle, I think Joe Alt is probably going to be the guy going forward.
Yeah, and he will be at least through most of the summer next year, because this is not an injury that Rashawn Slater comes back from before the draft, after the draft. This is something that's going to take a bit to even see what he looks like. So Joe Alt will be that left tackle through all the spring, most of the summer, if not training camp and the preseason. So yes, I do believe Joe Alt is your left tackle in 2026.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, but we'll see what happens there.
Yeah.
Okay, before we continue to the defensive side of the ball, our audio audience is going to take a quick break. YouTube, we're going to continue right along after this. All right, let's get to the defensive line. 6 for 6 here. Obviously, no real surprises. Tier Tart, Deshaun Hand, and Otito Ogbonia are probably established as your starting trio. Jamari Caldwell, who only played 9 snaps in the preseason finale, is probably your 4th. And then Naquan Jones, who popped all preseason long. Justin Eboigbe, who is improved a tremendous amount from last season. This is your 6th. I think this is arguably the deepest position room on the roster, with how much I think this is going to be an improvement from last year, as crazy as that sounds with Poona Ford and Morgan Fox. But your thoughts on the defensive line, specifically defensive tackle moves that they made today?
Yeah, this is just I wouldn't say it's a great group, but it's a group that kicked ass in the preseason, that's coached by a great defensive line coach, a great defensive coordinator. And there's a history of this defensive line with not the greatest names out there playing very, very well. So is this an awesome pass rushing group? Not necessarily. I don't think so at all. But I watch these guys every time the 49ers line up, they kick the crap out of that 49ers offensive line. Naquan Jones was just beating the brass out of some of these guys. So good. I think this group has earned the right to be considered that the deepest group on the roster. And again, I have to stress, like, I don't think this is an elite group by any means.
Sure.
They're going to play their asses off. They're going to play well. And these 6 are a wonderful 6 to have.
Yeah, I agree there. For what it's worth, obviously, we should mention Tara Edwards, Christopher Hinton, Nesta Jade Silvera, the players who were cut today. The Chargers kept 2 on the practice squad last year. Christopher Hinton was one of, I think, 4 players who stayed on the practice squad all year last year. I kind of would expect that to continue. Tara Edwards and Nesta Jade Silvera each popped at different moments of the preseason. Obviously, Edwards had the incredible interception. Honestly, whoever they decide between, I'm cool with. I don't really have a preference there. But I think Hinton is probably safe on the practice squad, just given, again, his connections and all that.
Yeah. Is Nesta Jade Silvera a waiver exempt veteran? I don't think he is.
I don't think so. He has the seasons. I don't think he's played in enough actual games, because he's mostly been a practice squad guy. But
yeah, but no, I would love to see them keep Edwards around. I really thought he popped. I think this whole defensive line group, you saw flashes from all of them. There was no disappearing from any of these guys.
Yeah, I agree there. All right, edge rushers, obviously the 5. Again, they told you they were keeping Caleb Murphy on the 53 the second that he was done with the quote unquote starters that day. So Khalil Mack, Tuli Tuipulotu, those are your 2 starters. Bud Dupree, who by all accounts has had a pretty good training camp this year. It looks a little rejuvenated according to some reporters, so that should be an improvement there. And then Murphy will be your 4th, your special teams edge rusher, which is great. I'm so glad that somebody established themselves as a special teams edge rusher and can take that off of Tuli's plate. And then Kyle Kennard, who we liked, unfortunately just did not show enough, so he's probably going to be your healthy scratch guy here. And then obviously the team moving on from Tremont Morris-Brash, Kylan Guidry, and Garmon Randolph. Aaron Wilson, who is an NFL reporter, said that Garmon Randolph is likely to be a practice squad addition. Cool. And I assume that the team would like to have Tremont Morris-Brash again as well.
Yeah, Morris-Brash with the better preseason overall. Randolph really showed out. I was really impressed by him. You never felt, once Murphy did what he did, and even Morris-Brash, you knew there wasn't a spot for him on this team. But I think he really showed up, was a powerful edge rusher for sure. So I think I'd love to keep him around. I think again, this whole group for the most part like showed up, played well, except for Kennard, and hopefully we don't have a sort of Junior Colson here again. But for now, day 3 pick, just not hitting right now. Hopefully he does in the future.
Yeah, hopefully, and we'll have to monitor this because is the 4th round just going to be designated for redshirt player? Or wait, was Kennard 4th round or 5th round?
Kennard was 4th.
Yeah. So Eboigbe 4th round redshirt season, Kennard 4th round redshirt season. I don't know if that's going to be a trend or not. I hope not, but something to potentially monitor going forward.
Yeah.
I agree with you. I thought Garmon Randolph had some really intriguing flashes, much more powerful profile than I thought would have headed in. So interested to see how that one turns out.
Yeah.
All right, moving on to linebacker. Again, another surprise here. We kind of predicted that Junior Colson would be on IR. We thought that would be a short-term situation. Unfortunately for Junior Colson, his season is over. We do not know specifics of this injury, but he was placed on the injured reserve list without the designation to return. So there's a new rule for the NFL where you can choose 2 players to place on short-term IR without losing the spots in the season to return players from IR. And unfortunately, Junior Colson did not receive that designation. So his season is over. The Chargers also decided to cut Delshon Phillips here. So they are keeping 4 linebackers on the initial 53. Deion Henley, Troy Dye, Denzel Perryman, no brainers there. Those are your 3 main players. And then Marlo Wax, arguably the best player of the preseason for the Chargers, makes it as well. Let's start with Junior Colson. Tyler, you and I were huge fans of his. Where are you at with him right now, and what do you make of him being placed on IR?
It's extremely disappointing. It's a player that we all liked, that Bowman had as his LB1, that worked in this system. It was like the easiest, it'll work here, player in last year's draft.
Absolute no-brainer.
Yeah, like if Junior Colson went to the Giants, okay, I don't know. But he went to the Chargers with his coach and his defensive coordinator, and his linebacker coach loved him. By all accounts in the meetings, he was just a brainy, smart guy who, in theory, knew this defense front and back. You can't scout some of these injuries ahead of time, though. You can't predict some of these things. You can't scout appendicitis. And unfortunately, for the start of his career, it's just been one disaster after another. And even though I think he started ahead initially, like playing over Deion Henley in the spring last year, the hits he kept coming. And unfortunately, he just is now on season-ending IR. And I don't really know what to expect of him moving forward in his career. He's going to be on the team next year, I'm pretty sure. I think they need to see more because they haven't seen anything. And that's kind of the difficult part. We haven't even seen a ton of Junior Colson.
Right.
I can't even say with, like, let's say Jaw Taylor, 6th-round pick, I know. But we've seen a lot of Jaw Taylor on defense, on game day to know, like, that's kind of where we're at. With Junior Colson, there is still that hope that he can be what they thought he was, what they've seen in front of them on game day on Saturdays. So it's really disappointing. It's unfortunate. I hope, this year to get right is enough for him. But this is now, I mean, I've lost count of what it's been for him. We don't even know what this is. But ultimately, and Delshon Phillips was a surprise for me today. But ultimately, if you watch how one linebacker played and how another linebacker played, Marlo Wax is right now playing like a better linebacker than Junior Colson. So not only does Junior Colson have whatever this injury might be, frankly, the better player to field, I think, is Marlo Wax, who is completely dialed into what Minter wants right now.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that at all. I mean, nobody can. Like, Marlo Wax's tape from this preseason, as well as the statistics, were just high-level stuff for an undrafted free agent linebacker. The instincts, the playmaking ability, all of that is there. The only thing with Wax is, like, the size and the athletic traits are just not as high level as you would want. So that's why he was an undrafted free agent, and that's why Junior Colson was a 3rd-round pick. It just sucks, man. Like, it feels like there's just sometimes these players who check every single box you could possibly want, and they just, for whatever reason, are not meant to work out in the NFL. It just is really unfortunate that this is kind of the way that his career is trending. Again, we have no idea what his injury is. We have no idea what exactly is going on here. Jim Harbaugh was asked last week if his injury this time was like a re-aggravation of the injury he had at the start of training camp after the Hall of Fame game, and he was like, I don't know how to answer that. Again, this regime is not going to answer injury questions. So it just sucks that we have no idea, what went on here. Like, we obviously know what to expect with Rashawn Slater's injury. We know what he's dealing with. We know what the recovery is like. With Junior, it's like we have no idea. We don't know anything about this. So this is his third stint on injured reserve, 2 last year, once this year. Obviously, this is season ending. And then obviously the appendicitis. So it's really frustrating that he hasn't even gotten his chance really to get his feet wet and like be able to have like a real verified NFL offseason, like be able to work with Ben Herbert the entire offseason, etc. So again, we'll see what happens here. But anybody asking like if he's going to get cut, etc., no, like they gain nothing by cutting him. He's going to be out for the season. So he'll be back on his regular rookie contract next year. They'll work with him, try and get him back up to speed. And I still think like the best version of this linebacker room involves Junior Colson hitting his ceiling. I still think that ceiling is in there. But the floor is obviously much lower than either of us would have expected just because of the injuries and things like that at this point in time. So it just sucks. Like there's people in the chat are like throwing around the buzzword and like I get it. It's part of the draft, but it's just, there's a human element here to a guy who's dealt with like 5 different injuries. He entered the Chargers like after the draft injured as well. So it's just like, this guy has been through a lot. And obviously there's all of his background stuff and things like that from his childhood that I don't want to talk about necessarily, but there's a human element here to like Junior Colson not being given a real opportunity to actually playing in the NFL.
Yeah. It almost looks like on the field too, especially with all these injuries. And I think the pressure mounting, it's just unfortunately reminds me just a bit of what you see sometimes with Quentin Johnson, where it almost feels like the brain is trying to think and it's paralysis by analysis. And this guy, granted, Junior Colson, I think was much further along, but you have this guy who, by all accounts, again, was very smart. Like, again, they had to tell him to shut up in the meetings because he was answering every question. And now it just seems like a guy who's like, I can't get hurt. I can't lose my job. The round pick. I got to play. Oh my God, everybody else is getting it around. And it just looks like a guy who's stuck. And it's really unfortunate. Those things can change. You can get your head right and work and do whatever you got to do, get right mentally. But yeah, I hope things turn around for him. Whatever his future ends up being for the Chargers, I hope he's able to contribute in some positive way.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. All right. Del'Shawn Phillips, also a surprise here. Ryan Ficken went to the podium last week and basically was like, yeah, he's going to be on our roster. He's locked into our special teams role. A guy that they really trust for that specific way that they want to play football. They obviously signed him to a pretty decent contract to replace Nick Niemann, who was also cut today, who goes to Houston, essentially swapping positions here. Unfortunately, I think maybe just the injury was a little bit too much for him to overcome. But I think this room also is a room that is going to be added to, guys. I think this, with the way that this team plays special teams, obviously Marlon Wax can take some of that on, but I think they're going to want to have a third linebacker here who can play special teams, because you're not going to want Deion playing special teams. He's playing ideally, 100% of the snaps on defense. Perryman's not a special teams player, so I would keep an eye on this room over the next couple of days, because I think this is another room where they could potentially add to. Whether that is a Nick Niemann return, I don't know. Maybe that was a factor with the decision to move on from Del'Shawn Phillips. But I would expect somebody in this room to be added as a special teams contributor.
I think I agree, but not 100% sure, because they at least have 2 linebackers who can do it. I guess my question is, if they add another linebacker who's mostly going to be a special teams guy, how much of Marlo Wax's job is in jeopardy? Like, how safe is a Marlo Wax? And we'll talk about the other UDFAs in a bit, given that he is, this might just be a classic, hey, you made it, we're protecting you, but we're going to have the other guy.
Of the UDFAs, I think Marlo Wax is the safest. I think like he can definitely be coached up to play on special teams. I'm not suggesting that they move on from him in favor of somebody like Nick Niemann. But I just think like Ryan Ficken's going to want a bit more of a veteran presence in there to play and contribute. And Wax might be maybe like a healthy scratch guy, play with injuries kind of guy. So I think Wax's spot on the 53 is safe. I don't think we would have gone to bat for him on our predictions to not have him be safe. I think he's pretty safe out there.
Yeah, this is a player I want to see on defense. Well, I don't know about anytime soon because I do like the other linebackers they have, but I don't know, man. Just feels like he's got it.
Yeah, I agree. And Troy Dye and Denzel Perryman are both free agents after the year. So you want some long-term certainty, especially with Junior Colson's uncertainty. So yeah. I don't think they can afford to, cut Marlon Wax at any point in the season at this point. I think he could be potentially your linebacker 2 next year if things go well for him and poorly for others. But this is a guy you definitely want to keep around. Yeah.
And okay, surprisingly, because I was looking this same thing you just set up earlier, Troy Dye is under contract for 2 years.
Oh, really? Okay.
I was going to say the exact same thing you just did, but I wanted to look it up real quick. And yeah, Troy Dye is under contract for 2026.
All right.
Not that he's guaranteed to be, but
yeah. That works for me. I'm A-okay with Troy Dye being around for 2 years. That's great. All right, moving on to defensive back. The Chargers are keeping 12. I think we're missing one on here, actually. Is that right or no?
5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 safeties. Still, Cam Hart. Sorry.
Okay.
I forgot Cam Hart again. I did this on another episode. Sorry, Cam Hart, who I like.
Yeah. So for our video audience, imagine that there's 7 corners, 5 safeties, 12 defensive backs. I do think this is a position room that is going to change as well. For now, the Chargers keeping 7 cornerbacks: Cam Hart, Tarheeb Still, Dante Jackson, Benjamin St-Juste, Jasir Taylor, Eric Rogers, and Nico Reed. Both make it. And also Cam Hart on the screen here, so don't get mad at us. Safety: Derwin James, Alohi Gilman, Elijah Molden. Those are your 3 starters. RJ Mickens is your draft pick. Big surprise here as well, which I don't know how we want to start here, but the Chargers electing to keep Kendall Williamson instead of Tony Jefferson. I think that's probably the place to start because a lot of people early in the chat were like, who is Kendall Williamson? So Tyler, what are your thoughts here with Kendall Williamson over Tony Jefferson?
I'll break it up. So with Kendall Williamson, I thought we had mentioned him several times, but generally as a, hey man, heck of a special teams contributor, makes tackles on defense, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Would be an awesome practice squad addition. So I think him being at least on the practice squad was definitely earned. This is not a player that no one's heard of because we've talked about him plenty of times. But I was very surprised that they went with him over Tony Jefferson. If you tell me, okay, they went with 4 safeties, cut Tony Jefferson, and had to keep, let's say it's Tucker Fisk, whatever. Okay, fine. At the end of the day, Tony Jefferson is a waiver exempt player. They did this last year. By his own admission, he said earlier in the year, it's going to be hard to make the roster. Anyone out there and kicked ass. This is a player that was one of their best defensive players in a team of great defensive performances this preseason. Tony Jefferson was very, very good. Clearly not just a late addition or kind of a random addition they had last year, but an integral part of their defense, who you trust, who performs well in big moments, who's around the football, has even been playing some special teams. I am surprised that they have specifically Kendall Williamson over Tony Jefferson. I'm not surprised that Tony Jefferson was cut, even though I disagree. And frankly, I think it's a bit disrespectful. I am surprised that it was Kendall Williamson over Tony Jefferson.
Yeah, so the Jefferson part, I agree with you. I think it is like borderline disrespectful. And he tweeted out like during the show, it just be motivation for me. I don't take any of it personal. I just put it on tape when I get the opportunity. Love. So this is a situation for me. Like he did everything you possibly could have wanted him to do to make the roster. He's tremendously valuable. And if the decision for the Chargers came down to Tony Jefferson or Nico Reed, I would have understood that. Like that would have made sense to me. Maybe you're a little bit concerned about Nico Reed not making it through waivers. You want to kind of build off of his summer. Like Nico Reed had one of the best training camps and preseasons of any undrafted free agent that we've seen. Marlon Wax is right up there as well. But Nico Reed at one point was working with the first team defense in training camp, playing well, getting pass breakups. Jesse Minter's like, oh my gosh, we're so amazed at how consistently making plays he is. Like he's doing great. that part I would have understand. I think Nico Reed has earned the right to be on the roster, but keeping Kendall Williamson instead of Tony Jefferson is like insane to me. Like there's just no justification for me that this makes sense for. Kendall Williamson was behind him routinely on defense. Tony Jefferson was working with the first team defense throughout the summer in training camp while Elijah Molden was recovering, when Alohi Gilman was like missing some time here. Tony Jefferson was your third safety. He's playing special teams. He's beloved in the locker room. He's a great leader. That to me is a guy you keep on the 53. And we made that argument, when we were doing our predictions. Like everybody just kind of assumed they would cut him and he would do the practice squad thing again. And maybe he still could, but they shouldn't have had to do this. Like he was a guy who earned his right on the 53. Yeah. Even if you can make it work on the practice squad and elevate him, it just doesn't make sense to me to do this. So with Kendall Williamson, I don't know how long this is going to take. I'm glad for him. Like he showed some fun things in the preseason. He led the team in special teams tackles. He had an elite special teams grade, but there's no justification for me that I can find to keep Kendall Williamson over Tony Jefferson.
Yeah. Not specifically California Renegade here's comment. A lot of people are saying this, that there could be a handshake agreement here. I actually don't think that's the case. Now, it's not that if Tony Jefferson comes back, like there wasn't something, but I really don't think, based on how he's responded to this publicly, at least, that this is something that like, okay, yeah, like, okay, just do a handshake agreement. I'll come back. No problem. I really think he was genuinely bummed and disappointed and maybe even a bit surprised by this himself, because he earned the right to be out there. And I understand it's never just one-to-one, but if you go, okay, hey, we kept these players, and let's say they kept Rocket Sanders and they kept Branson Taylor, and it's like, look, it's Nico Reed or Tony Jefferson. All right, like I understand it, but to have Eric Rogers and Nico Reed, and I guess you can say Jasir Taylor and Kendall Williamson over Tony Jefferson, again, if it's Nico Reed or Marlo Wax or Jefferson, I get it. But Rogers, Williamson, I just don't know who was interested in those players, especially because Eric Rogers could straight up just go on IR in a couple of weeks or in a week.
Yeah, I don't think you want to risk losing Tony Jefferson to waivers. That's been my whole thing the entire time, or not waivers. He can sign wherever, but you don't want to lose him is my point here. I shared this in the Discord earlier today. The Baltimore Ravens are very interested in bringing him back. The Seattle Seahawks are very interested in signing him. Like this Ravens style defense is all over the league. All these coaches that he worked with in Baltimore, they're now defensive coordinators all over the league. The Miami Dolphins, they have his former position coach as the defensive coordinator in Miami. Like there are several teams who need veteran safety help, who are going to look at Tony Jefferson, see that he can still play, and say, hey man, the Chargers didn't like you enough to keep you on the 53. We like you a whole lot. Come play on the 53 for us, and you're going to be our safety 2 or 3 right away. That's ultimately up to him. He can make that decision himself. You know, he's a Southern California kid. Obviously, he grew up in San Diego. He grew up loving the Chargers. Maybe he decides to stick it around again, and he really likes Joe Ortiz, and he loves Jesse Minter, and he loves Jim Harbaugh, and all that stuff is true. But I don't think you come out of retirement and then work your ass off like this to just do the practice squad thing. I think he wants to play, and if he's going to look at these other teams and see a better opportunity for him to play, and just says too, money talks. Yeah. I don't know, man. I think this is generally 50-50 that he comes back or not. Like, I think there are enough other teams interested in him where I would not be surprised if he's not back on the practice squad.
Yeah, I think there were other media members like saying, hey, Tony Jefferson can still play. Maybe these teams would be interested in Tony Jefferson. Like, when the hell does no offense, like the 5th or 6th, Charger safety get that much attention from national reporters? Yeah. And everybody was aware that Tony, and so if they're aware, I'm assuming teams are also aware. Not that he's the future of a safety room by any means, but he's at least a player that can play immediately. I partially agree here with Ben Herbert. Hey, Ben Herbert, about Kendall Williamson and his role in special teams. I'm assuming that's a huge part of why Kendall Williamson is on here, and we've mentioned Ryan Ficken has a big sway in this. But then Tony Jefferson did play double-digit special team snaps down the stretch last year in the wildcard game in Week 18. He played 20-something special team snaps in the preseason, and he's going to be active in your safety 3. Like Kendall Williamson might, like, I don't know if that spot is very permanent. I think it's very temporary. But like Tony Jefferson can play special teams, and he would also be playing on defense.
Right.
So I agree that Kendall Williamson is probably more of a long-term special teams option for them, but Jefferson can do that and play for you on defense. And I just don't know that's the case with Williamson. So definite surprise for me here, because I genuinely was not aware they were this into Williamson and Rodgers over Jefferson.
Yeah, Williamson, like, all due respect, he's a guy you can put on the practice squad. Like, he's not going anywhere. All due respect, Jefferson, you have a real chance to lose. So we'll see what happens. Obviously, I hope that Jefferson sticks around. I hope that he is willing to do the practice squad thing again. But I don't know, man. It feels very 50-50 to me. Okay, getting to the cornerback room again. 7 players. Apologies to Cam Hart for leaving him off here. I did not catch that either. Nico Reed, we mentioned, I think more than deserving here. Eric Rodgers, another surprise here, but at the same time, he was seen after the game on Saturday in a walking boot. So this feels like a short-term IR designation move tomorrow, and then maybe reassess after 4 weeks. So again, emphasizing here that there's new IR rules where he can be placed on IR and still be activated during the season. Same thing with Dean Leonard, who was also placed on IR with a designation to return. So that's another kind of cornerback room here as well. In terms of the players cut, obviously Harrison Hand, Triquez Bridges, who they drafted in the 7th round, Miles Purchase, Nehemiah Shelton, all released from this room. How are you feeling about this group now that we have the 53?
As a whole, some of these late round picks not sticking and doing a whole lot so far is a bit of a bummer. So that's Vidal, of course, now, Brendan Rice, Cornelius Johnson last year, Triquez Bridges, Branson Taylor. It is a bummer that those players aren't, working out so far. The good news is with Joe Ortiz, there's so many at-bats that there are plenty of players in both drafts you feel good about. So it's a bummer that Bridges didn't make it, but he was the only player, granted he played more games, to allow over 200 yards in the preseason. It was bad in practice. It was bad in games. Bummer there. The other cuts here, not a surprise. I guess we can talk about Jaw Taylor now, even though we have. It's worth bringing up because he draws the disdain, plenty of disdain and unhappy thoughts, let's say, from the fan base. At the end of the day, it's a special teams thing with him.
Yeah.
And I think that if they keep at least one of Rodgers or Reed, or Rodgers comes back in 4 games, it's very possible that those players are playing on defense over Jasir Taylor. But that's what special teams does. And we had to argue this one in particular because this was very much so a facts over feelings discussion here. And even the facts on defense weren't great for Jaw Taylor. But he is their special teams guy. And Dean Leonard, now when Dean Leonard comes back from IR, Jaw Taylor could be gone. If Eric Rodgers comes back and he's healthy, he could be gone. But right now, and especially with their long snapper going on short-term IR, you want to keep some of your special teams guys around. Jasir Taylor is one of those guys for them. So yes, I completely agree. The defensive stuff ain't great. God help us all, unless for some reason you're playing the Dolphins on primetime and Brandon Staley is your coach, if Jaw Taylor has to actually play a ton of defense. But this is a role that is purely special teams, I think. And it just is what it is. I know people were very much like, Jaw Taylor stinks. Look, I almost agree with you, but he plays special teams. He plays a lot of it. Generally speaking, he's good at it. He's here.
Yeah, he is here. Sorry, I was just texting Brooke for a second there.
You're good.
We spoke about this the entire time. I don't want to, rehash a ton of that.
Sure.
It's funny to me how, like, with certain things, it's like in Ryan Ficken we trust, in Jesse Minter we trust, but in Harbaugh we trust, right there in the chat. But then when it comes to Ryan Ficken's special teams evaluation of Jasir Taylor, it's like, well, we don't care. We don't want him on the team. And I get it, like the defensive stuff is bad here, but if Jasir Taylor were not as effective of a gunner as he is, then he would not be on the team. It's really as plain and simple as that. And I made that comment on Twitter, and people were like, "Well, how are you evaluating gunner play? Like, how do you know about that?" It's like, well, I remember the Denver Broncos game when he literally won them the game by being a good gunner. And his rookie season and second season were stock full of great plays as a gunner. Again, I mentioned this earlier. He was 5th on the team last year in special team snaps, despite playing through a broken leg. Like, this is a guy who, again, it's not great on defense. I get it, but he's doing everything he can to provide value to special teams, and Ryan Ficken loves him, so he's going to be on the team. And like, we just need to accept it as fans and move on. When you're talking about the back end of the roster, special teams plays such an important role. And it's not just as simple as like, oh, you can teach so-and-so to be gunner. You can teach so-and-so to be the personal protect player. No, it doesn't work like that. You can't always do that. Not everybody is good at special teams. So it's just, I understand it. He's your 6th corner on the depth chart, maybe your 7th. He is not going to be playing much defense this year, but he's a great special teamer, and that is why he is on the roster. Similarly, Nico Reed is not playing ahead of Benjamin St-Juste, guys. Like, I saw that so much on Twitter in the Discord today. For whatever reason, and I'm right there with you, like with the skepticism, but for whatever reason, Jesse Minter thinks that Benjamin St-Juste is a starting caliber player on the football team. And I understand why they signed him as kind of like a, Cam Hart insurance kind of player. But this team thinks very highly of Benjamin St-Juste. They really like his traits. They like his size. They like his ability to tackle. We kind of have to just be patient a little bit with him. Again, I don't think he's going to play a ton. I think Cam Hart is ahead of him when he is healthy, but they very clearly want like a big 6'2", 6'3" corner to play opposite of Tarheeb Still. And right now, Cam Hart cannot be trusted to stay healthy. He was injured twice in the summer. So that's why Benjamin St-Juste is here. If all goes according to plan, he will not be playing a ton on defense. But if we are going to be this Jesse Minter can have whatever he wants kind of fan base because he deserves it, then that includes giving Benjamin St-Juste a chance, because I don't think anybody was super stoked about signing Christian Fulton, and that turned out pretty good as well.
Yeah, this is one I think we have to trust. Well, Minter for sure, but also just the practice and what they're seeing in practice here, because in the games, it hasn't been like great. He obviously hasn't played a ton due to injury, but then you hear the reports of practice and it's like, oh, he's actually doing pretty well in practice. Yeah. So this is something that the coaches are seeing that we don't necessarily get to see. And yeah, he is a veteran option for them. And like you said, like no one's exactly completely healthy all offseason for these guys. Neither was he. So keep him around. I just think he fits the style and the body type that Minter wants, and I'm going to trust in him to get it done. Now, I'm in Ficken I trust, in Minter I trust. We spend a lot of time on the offensive line because we don't feel Devlin we trust.
No,
not even kind of.
You have to earn the trust. Like, let's be clear.
Yes, definitely. So they see something in him, and as far as depth corners go, it's not the worst. He's not going to start, I don't think, for the Chargers. I think he's very firmly the 4th guy for them at minimum. Yeah. But actually, yeah, no, he is the 4th guy. I know he's not great, or we haven't seen him be great, but this Minter sees something in him, and I'm willing to let it play out.
Yeah, I agree. All right, last group here is the special teams unit, which currently does not have a long snapper. Again, that could just be Tucker Fisk. We'll see. Sure. But J.K. Scott and Cameron Dicker, obviously no-brainer here. So in terms of the long snapper stuff, so Josh Harris is going to miss the first 4 games, which is a bummer because he's one of the best special team snappers in the league. Highest rated Madden long snapper in the league at minimum. So kind of how I expect this to go down, I think they will do their due diligence and bring in some long snappers for workouts this week. Obviously, they have this week and next week to get ready for the Chiefs game. I think they have essentially like 6 practices. So I think they will bring in some long snappers to work out. I think they will let Tucker Fisk practice at long snapper. And if Tucker Fisk can do what Ryan Ficken wants him to do, then they'll roll with it. So they don't necessarily have to sign a long snapper, but if they want to bring in one of these guys, and I'll pull up the list again from Alex Katzen here because he's the special teams guru and I am not. They could definitely do that. So the names that he brought up again are Tucker Addington and Jake McQuaid, as well as Tabor Pepper and Patrick Scales, who were undrafted free agents this year. So there's 4 names. We'll see what happens, but if they can make Tucker Fisk work, man, I kind of like the added flexibility here to not have that roster designation, but we'll see what happens over the next couple of days.
Yeah, it kind of stinks that they have to cut somebody to add a long snapper. I could very much very well be
a long snapper for 4 games.
Right.
Or so, I guess it theoretically could be longer. We don't really know about Josh Harris's injury.
Sure. So yeah, bummer here for sure. Thankfully, Tucker Fisk was at least like we saw him snap and it worked in the preseason. It was not an issue for them. I doubt that's going to hold for 4 games. And I'd really like Cameron Dicker to get that record for the field goal record. I don't want too much of these things broken up, but hey, if Fisk can do it, all the power to him.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, that's the 53. Again, a rather chaotic 53 for this team, but a lot of fun for sure. Before we continue with our 17 super chats, which we still have 1,500 people in the chat, so appreciate the heck out of you guys here. Our audio audience is going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back after this. Okay, before we get to super chats, Tyler, any free agent that you want to bring up here? Any waiver claim that you think this team could look out for, or anything like that before we touch on the super chats here?
I will need more time to look at some of these names because some of the players we were hoping were going to be cut along the offensive line, I think mostly across the board, those guys stuck around.
Yeah,
so that's kind of where I'm looking right now. And maybe I might want to look at running back just in case. Yeah,
running back I'm interested in. Linebacker I'm interested in, obviously, especially if Nick Niemann is going to be brought back here. But I think the Chargers are going to be very active tomorrow based off of this 53. Yeah. So
yep,
we'll see what happens there. All right, Dark Same is kicking us off, says want to sign Cole Strange, was a first-round talent. Well, he was a first-round talent for one team.
Yeah, he was on our channel, and Maddie interviewed him back in the day, but yep. I did not expect a first-round selection, that's for sure. That was a heck of a draft for Bill Belichick.
Yeah, the Rams wanted to take him in like the 4th round. There's obviously that famous video of Sean McVay and not Snead? Les Snead, thank you. Laughing at the Patriots for drafting him. So for the Chargers, I think it's fine, but I think his best PFF grades are at center, not at guard. So I would be looking more for somebody who could play guard / right tackle, like I mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
Brett, I apologize. I'm not even going to try and say your last name. Feel free and comment this or let me know how to say that. But Brett with a big super chat, appreciate the heck out of it. Says, hi, Steven and Tyler. I haven't participated in the chat for as long as I have been subscribing to the channel, but I want to thank you guys for all the amazing content this offseason.
That's very sweet of you, Brett. Thank you so much. The fact that there are 1,400 people here, 75 minutes into a show, is awesome. Thank you so much for sticking around with us. It's been fun. Some of the preseason was not fun, but most of the offseason was fun. And now we have actual football on the way. So if you stuck with us, and clearly a lot of you are with us today, if you stuck with us over the offseason, it's going to be a fun regular season, or terrible, but it's still fun on the channel.
Yeah, it's always fun on the channel. I mean, we went through the 2020 season together, so we can go through anything else.
Yeah.
The length of the preseason was not fun, but some of the stuff in the games was a lot of fun. Obviously, like Marlo Wax, Nico Reed, the Trey Lance stuff. Parts of it were fun. 4 games is too much, though. Appreciate Brett for jumping in here, though. Red Hector says, not sure why we had to wait so long for the roster to be announced, but now it's time to fall in line and bolt up. Love the show. Coming from Edmonton to see our Bolts against the Vikings. Love that.
That's awesome.
You got to see some of our international fans at a game last year.
Yes,
so there's a chance I might be at that game as well. Appreciate Red for jumping in here as well.
Yes, if it makes you all feel better, I won't be at that game, My sister is going, and she did go with me to see the Bengals win in primetime last year, or the win over the Bengals last year. So, but she's bringing her boyfriend Chad, and I can't guarantee that he's got good mojo.
He's a Vikings fan, isn't he?
He is a Viking. He's also a Viking.
Okay.
Which, to be fair, that might also be in our favor because he's
sure
he can't even catch a fish to save his life. So hopefully, bad mojo rubs off on the Vikings.
There you go. Andrew Murray says Kendall Williamson came completely out of left field based on none of the Chargers podcasts or reporters talking about him at all. What happened? We kind of went over this. So we highlighted him a couple of times on our show, and Daniel Popper spoke about him pretty often as well from practice reports. So I agree, completely left out of left field, but this is a player that the Chargers I think are invested in. So I don't know if there were people interested in him, other teams, but he played a ton of snaps in the preseason, led them in special teams tackles. This is a guy who I think has some interesting stuff. I just would have also preferred him on the practice squad.
Yeah, if you had asked me, okay, who are the 5 bubble guys? He wasn't a UDFA, but kind of in that same range. Who would make it? I think I wouldn't even get to Williamson as the 5th guy. So this is very much so a surprise to me too. Yeah,
no doubt. Davis says, what do you make of cutting Vidal, Sanders, and Miller Hines? Kind of wish they cut Matlock. So Miller Hines is interesting to me. He's obviously very different from the other players, but unfortunately, like, you put the ball on the ground 3 times in 4 preseason games, that's really tough to come back from. Wish they had cut Matlock. He deserves a lot of credit for how he improved throughout the season, having never played fullback. Unfortunately, I don't think that has continued. I don't think he's really improved as much as I would have hoped heading into this year. So I wish they would just let Tucker Fisk do that, because I know that he would be an impact blocker there. But
yeah,
again, I get it. Like, versatility and vibes and like all that is important too.
Can do stuff and vibes is definitely a heck of a pitch. Yeah, the 3 of them not making it is kind of a surprise. I floated the idea that maybe everyone's playing so well that perhaps none of them need to make it because you're happy with any of them, but the Najee situation made it so tricky. So we'll see. I don't expect at least Sanders and Miller Hines to get claimed on waivers, and I don't think Vidal is either.
Yeah, Vidal for sure not. I would be surprised about the other ones. Caleb says, thank you guys for the shout out, BTFU. Appreciate Caleb for jumping in here.
Congrats, Caleb.
Yeah, congrats for the pregnancy. Seriously, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Gary says Rocket Sanders being cut, he'll get picked up. Again, I kind of doubt it. Like, there's so many running backs who are cut today. It's pretty easy to go find a running back if you need some help here. So there's just not enough of a track record for him, and he didn't like crush the preseason. But yeah, I think he'll be back on the practice squad.
I think so too. Okay. Probably. I think so. I don't know. It feels like a coin toss to me at this point.
That's fair. Last year they did have 2 running backs on the practice squad, for what it's worth. Patterson was on it all year long, and then they kind of flip-flopped the other guy, depending on injuries and stuff. Daddy Don't Pull Out says Fisk is long snapper. Potentially. We'll see. But appreciate the super chat here.
Mm-hmm.
Danny Corbett says, dumb question. Any chance Zion works at tackle? No such thing as a dumb question. But no, he's far too small for offensive tackle.
That's a dumb question. He's not playing tackle.
I was trying to be nice.
Sorry.
Not everybody has these RAS profiles memorized like we do. I was trying to be nice.
Yeah, I don't think so. I think they would genuinely, if you were on the roster, would have played Carson Barnhart at tackle before Zion.
Oh God. Carson Barnhart can go play tackle in the UFL if he wants, or the CFL.
He's going to be sick, man. Blocking for Larry Roundtree, and that's going to be awesome.
Yeah. Putts and Bolts says, driving to Arizona currently. Thanks for the content. Hopefully you don't have to deal with the Habab or whatever it's called, like the dust storm that's going on in Arizona. It's crazy.
It's called a what?
It's like a Habab. It's like HOBOB, I think. It's like a major dust storm. You didn't see these pictures?
No, I don't.
There was like a picture of like the whole like dust cloud like taking over Phoenix. Like, imagine like right over the Rohirrim, but like dust happening. Like, that's what it looked like.
Thank you for the appropriate visual for me to understand what's happening here.
I got you, dude.
That's what they get for cutting Simi Fehoko, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Haboob?
CJ,
Oh, Habab.
Haboob. Are there
No,
two
no,
O's?
AI says there's also a Haboob.
Okay.
Hobo Joe, Hobo Potatoes. I'm learning a lot from my one Google search here.
Yeah. CJH wants to know if running back moves closer to priority of 2026 draft needs.
I don't think it moves any closer only because of Hampton. So do I think you do like another maybe day too late, like round 3 running back if a great option is there? Maybe. But I don't think it really changes anything because they have their workhorse for 5 years essentially.
Yeah. I think Amari Hampton is going to touch the football like 400 times next year. So not early, but I think like it would be smart for them to probably draft a day 3 running back. I think that's just kind of where the position is at. You know, you want to take chances as much as you can. And, you know, maybe one of those guys hits, you get an undrafted free agent in here as well. But yeah, Omarion's going to be their guy. Like you're not going to take a running back in the 3rd round or anything like that going forward.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Dre says generational CB Nico Reed will win us a ring.
Hell yeah, man. I don't care who it is. I don't care if Tucker Fisk long snaps and then catches a pass and then throws a pass in the same game. Like whatever it takes, go win that Super Bowl.
You know, there's not a lot of things that unite the fan base, but everybody universally wanted Nico Reed on the roster, and that's pretty cool that he made it.
Yeah.
Like I don't know anybody that was like, yeah, Nico Reed sucks. Like everybody wanted him on the roster, so this is kind of cool.
Definitely.
Josh Albertson says 14th time catching alive. Who are your
Nice.
first 2 who would get cut if we add new people? Good question. I'm honestly surprised that Josh is actually asking a legitimate question. Usually he just messes with us here. So appreciate the change up, Josh.
First 2 that would be cut. It's got to be okay. Assuming Eric Rodgers goes to short-term IR, so I'll leave him off of that.
Yeah,
I mean, it kind of has to be Kendall Williamson, and then I don't know who's your second.
Kendall Williamson is definitely fair. Maybe Naquan Jones.
Oh yeah, maybe
because you could do the whole like vested veteran thing with him. But if you're not going to give me Eric Rodgers, I think that other one is a bit of a tougher ask.
Also, just depends on who they add.
Yeah. Dark Samus says Zion is looking good. I'm a big Zion supporter. We know, we love it. Commitment to the bit is fantastic. I don't know, man. I wish we could have seen a little bit more reps from him in the preseason. You know, especially at center, he really only got like 1 game essentially. But we'll see, man. Obviously, if the Chargers can get him to hit his ceiling, that would tremendously help the offense. So, but nobody is as optimistic about Zion as Dark Samus. I will say that for sure.
No, thank you for taking that from us. We no longer shoulder that burden. We are now like avid supporters, but not Dark Samus level.
Yeah. Nicholas says reminiscent of the Robbins Tender Dobbins.
Oh, you mean in the off season where he had the whatever that tag was?
Yeah, they're like the summer transitional tag or whatever.
Maybe that's what he means. You can clarify, Nick, if you're in here. I don't know that. There's my first yawn. Yeah, I don't know.
I was gonna wait to see if he wanted to jump in here, but
Sure.
Yeah. So Nick, feel free to jump in and clarify if you want. Josh with another good question. Wow, 2 legit questions from Josh. I'm surprised.
Are you
here.
okay, Josh?
Yeah, what's going on?
Work, buddy?
He wants to know, can Nick Niemann play the same kind of special teams position as Tony Jefferson would? Good question. I think it
was Niemann punt protector for them.
Yes, Nick Niemann was their punt protector. This year, I think that's going to be Alohi Gilman. So there's a lot of overlap, but it's not exactly the same. And I like if you look at the kickoff in particular, because kickoff is way more important this year, the linebackers are kind of they're usually closer to Dicker, and then the further out you go, that's where like the corners are. So essentially, you would go like linebackers and running backs, tight ends, receivers, and corners. And so there's a lot of overlap, but it's not exactly the same if you're looking for that.
Yeah. Oops.
That's probably more of a question for Alex Katzen. Honestly, he knows way more about special teams than I do.
Yeah,
but
God love it.
Alex Bridgeforth says season over. Everyone that got cut was good.
If the season is over, it's for very different reasons. Frankly, I think Najee Harris returning gives us some more positivity.
Yeah,
everyone that was cut was good. I do think Tony Jefferson earned the right to be there. I don't know if the rest of them were like good. I liked Rocket Sanders' film-ish in the preseason, but it wasn't like a great preseason.
Sure. Yeah. The season's definitely not over. Like, as long as this team has this coaching staff and Justin Herbert, they have a great chance to win every game. And I understand we've been very critical of the offensive line, but that's very nitpicky with the way that this roster is set up and this coaching staff can operate. And like this team has one of the best defensive coaching staffs in the league. They have one of the best special teams coordinators in the league. Mm-hmm. Jim Harbaugh is an elite motivator, leader of men. Justin Herbert is a great quarterback. Like, this team can still go very far. It's just like the offensive line is frustrating, and I get that, but the season is not over by any means.
Nah. If they lose to Denver, we can talk about it.
If they start the season like 0-3, then yeah, we can have a different conversation at that point.
Yes, I will tell you about 2026 running backs if they go 0-3.
Yeah. Alessandro says need more O-line and a running back just in case. Running back on the practice squad, I'm cool with, but I don't think they need to add one to the 53 offensive line. Yes, we agree there.
Yeah.
Mr. Boltbeak says Harris signing a waste. Why not Cooper? Is that like
why not Cooper? I think that I guess it depends on when you're asking why not Cooper. Why not Cooper before Keenan Allen, let's say? So after Mike, no Cooper because of Mike Williams, and then Keenan Allen because of not Cooper. Frankly, Cooper had a bad year last year anyhow. And then I think Keandre Lambert-Smith and Trey Harris just kind of made it work for them. Yeah. And they went, oh, all right, I think we're okay there. Let's shift more of our resources to our slot and our Z.
Yeah. I think I probably would have preferred Amari Cooper like in a vacuum over Mike Williams, but obviously Mike Williams has the connection and, you know, familiarity and everything like that does matter a lot when you're talking about like an ex receiver. But Harris signing a waste, we don't know that yet. We have no idea what he's. Frankly, I just kind of assumed he wasn't going to start the season on the active roster, and now he is. So, you know, what does he actually look like in a game? We don't know yet, but if Hampton is as good as I think he is going to be, I don't really know how much the Najee Harris signing not panning out is going to matter, but you signed him to a 1-year deal. You drafted a first-round running back. Like, if Harris is just a really good RB2, then that's a great position for them to be in.
Yeah. Yeah, and he frankly has like good RB2 contract. You know, it's not even like they spent a ton on him. It's barely a waste. I thought it was going to be given the projections of the contract he was going to get. It wasn't even close.
I love this super chat so much from AN. At the season is overtime, guy. We fucked if our Super Bowl hopes rested on Rocket and T-Jeff. This is one of my favorite super chats of all time. Thank you, AN. I really appreciate that.
It's just the spelling of it, too. It's like, we fucked if our Super Bowl hopes rest on Rocket and Tony Jefferson. Yes, I do think that. No, I don't recall who said the previous super chat. There's a lot of overreacting to these players sometimes. I almost guarantee most of these guys are going to go unclaimed, and the only one who would sign elsewhere is Jefferson, who isn't on waivers anyway. So, yeah, I think we're okay.
Yeah, I just love that. That's so good from AN.
It's a good counter response.
Yeah, for sure. Sean Bergen, new member today, says for the vibes, love y'all. For anyone, number 14 months. Excuse me. Yeah, I should say. My bad. For anyone wondering how to join the Discord, which was a lot of fun today, you joining up on the YouTube membership page or on our Patreon pages. That's how you get access to the Discord. So appreciate Sean for being in there. He did send in an actual super chat and said, anyway, picked up Hampton in fantasy, LOL.
Yeah, that should be just fine for you, especially if people are slightly lower on Hampton because Najee is quote unquote back.
Yeah.
Good value for you. But please also don't listen to me. I'm very bad at the fantasy football.
Yeah. I've done 2 fantasy drafts already. I have not taken a single Chargers player.
Wow.
I generally do not like taking a Chargers player on my fantasy teams because then if the team loses and they do poorly, I'm like double mad. Like I used to have a lot of Chargers players, obviously like if you had Gates and stuff like that, it was fun, right? But like there were times where if I had like Melvin Gordon or Austin Eckler and they lose and those two play poorly and I lost because of that, then I'm like double mad. And I just decided like I don't want to deal with that anymore. That being said, I would have drafted Hampton if he were like a little bit lower, but his ADP was going a little crazy there for a while.
Yeah. This is the first year I'm not playing fantasy football in maybe over 15 years. It's been a minute. This is the first time I just have had no interest.
Yeah. 2 years ago, I was in like 6 leagues and that was insane. Like I got to like week 10 and I was like, I hate this so much. I'm just done. Last year I only did 2 and this year I'm sticking with those 2. So I do a league with my friends from college every single year. And then I do a work league that I've done for the last 3 years since I've been at my school. So nice. Those are the only 2. I'm sticking with them. I'm not adding any more. Like I had, like my brother was like, hey, do you want to join a league with like other haggling cousins and stuff like that? And I was like, nope, I'm good. I'm
nope.
done.
No thanks.
Love y'all, but I'm out. I just 2 is like, that's enough for me. Like that's plenty of fantasy.
But are you in 50 like pack
holy shit, man? There's no way that's real. 50 fantasy football leagues?
I mean, does it count if you just drafted and don't pay attention? 50 would be pretty nuts if you're in 50. I can maybe handle 3 max.
Yeah. 3's okay. 3's fine. 2's like my sweet spot. I'm good with 2. 50 is insane. Like anything more than 10, I think is like ridiculously overkill. Like, how do you know that many people also?
Well, you can join, public leagues, I guess.
Joining random ones?
Yeah. I don't even have 50 people I talk to in a year, let alone 50 leagues. So yeah, I think it's just random people. Cocaine is a hell of a drug.
Who needs cocaine when you have fantasy football? Am I right?
Yeah.
Oh, man. Our last super chat from Alex is back in here. Says, we're collecting football cards in the 2025 score Charger set we're building has Vidal, Dobbins, and Sanders. Sounds tough.
We're collecting football cards in the 2025 score Charger set we're building has Vidal, Dobbins, and Sanders. Yeah. I don't know. I don't know much about any. That sucks. I don't know how to respond to this one.
Yeah, that does suck though. Okay, we got one in at the buzzer here from IGNI N7. Says, recently graduated college and got a great job, so I don't have a lot of time to follow the Chargers anymore, but I still find time to watch the boys. Thank you for being the best Chargers news channel on the site. Cheers. Appreciate that, IGNI N7. Yeah.
No, thank you so much for the super chat. Thank you for the comment. Congratulations on graduating and getting a job. I'm only a few years, both of us are kind of a few years removed from doing that. Yep. So I understand what that grind is like. I'm so happy you get to not be just collecting debt every year. And now you get to hopefully work back against that and earn some money. I hope that first paycheck is awesome for you.
Yeah, Brooke and I alternated. So we moved here in 2019 and she was doing her master's program in teaching. I was working full time. And then she finished, got her teaching job. And then I did my master's program, stopped working. And then in 2021, after I got my master's program done, I got my full-time job. And that first paycheck where both of us had like our full-time jobs, it just hit different. Like it was really nice. And it's a great feeling for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, congrats.
Mr. Boltbeak says, who will get more screen time, Beers or Swift? Big news for pop stars and football players this week. I think the Madison Beer situation is more surprising because of who Justin Herbert is. But Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift got engaged today. Taylor's ring, I was told by my wife, is valued at like $8 million. So that's fun. Must be nice to afford that kind of ring. So good for them. The answer to this question will always be Taylor Swift, though.
Yeah, we're assuming like Madison Beer even goes to the game. Like everyone who heard about this, Madison Beer, Justin Herbert thing had to mostly go look up what her songs were. Whereas I could karaoke about 15 Taylor Swift songs right now, no matter what. So Taylor Swift, I'm making that number up. I'm sure I could. Double digits. I think I can get double digits.
Okay.
Somewhere in my brain, instead of useful science information, is Taylor Swift songs.
Yeah, I mean, she's been around since we were in like elementary / middle school for me.
Tim McGraw. I'll sing like that Tim McGraw song that she was like her first big hit. I'll sing that one. No, I will not sing that one, but I can.
But yeah, I mean, like when Madison Beers was at the Chargers game, the NBC broadcast did not show her. They granted she was not in a relationship with the quarterback at that time.
Yeah.
But for the most part, like people like broadcasts don't show the families of teams unless it's like a big story. Josh Allen married Haley Steinfeld this year, and not a single broadcast mentioned it at any point throughout the season. So this is always going to be Taylor Swift.
Yeah. Plus, if Justin Herbert, let's say they become a more serious relationship over the course of the season, you don't see Herbert doing a single thing really for social media for the most part.
Right.
I don't think he's going to, not allows the wrong word, but I think he's going to keep this very private is what I'm saying. I don't think Madison Beer is going to get a whole lot of, although the broadcast is the broadcast, right? Maybe they can do whatever.
Right. Plus this year, like I kind of get the vibe it's Travis's last year. And so now we're going to have to deal with that storyline.
You got to pay off that ring, man. You get at least.
They're fine. Taylor Swift is one of like the richest people on the planet. They're good.
Yeah.
Man, what an episode. We got to 1,700 at one point, 26 super chats. We're an hour and 40 minutes in. We still have over 1,000 people in here. What a show.
Yeah.
Appreciate the heck out of you guys for jumping in here. Feels good. It feels like we've, done something together, even though we haven't, and we're on a computer screen.
Yeah. Speaking of doing stuff together, this person's got a whole crush on me, apparently. So you know what? I appreciate it, dude. Thank you so much. I am married. I am unfortunately off the market, but I appreciate your support. I get it, man. Everyone loves a little Chinese food.
Okay.
We never end our shows normally. Thank you.
No, we don't. No, we don't. We do not. But yeah, man, appreciate the heck out of you guys. We are about 2 weeks away from the actual season kicking off. So should be less than 2 weeks away, actually. So should be a fun time. I'm excited to cover this team in hopefully a positive fashion throughout the season.
Fair.
Josh at the buzzer. More live viewers than Kaplan and Friends. Best show in months.
Yeah.
Appreciate the super chats, Josh, tonight. Seriously, though, one of our longtime supporters. Always in here when he can be, when he's not busy saving lives.
Yeah. Yes. Doing actual important things. So thank you for even having any time to talk to us. Yes. Kaplan and Friends. That's a whole thing.
This is why people like us, not the actual football analysis, the stuff at the end of shows.
Oh yeah, no, who cares? I'll just from now on, I'm just going to timestamp the last 10 minutes of the show and just put a question mark and just see what comes up.
Yeah, Alessandro says the bright side Chargers might have the best practice squad. Excuse me,
a breast practice squad. Hell yeah, we got Haboobs in Arizona and a breast practice squad, baby.
Oh, it's been a long day. It's been a long day. Oh my goodness.
Oh man.
Yeah, Tyler. Marcus says Tyler never surprises you. I've worked with Tyler for like 8 years at this point, and he never surprises me either. So
Hey man. Yeah, I don't know. Try to throw something out there every once in a while.
Yeah, 100%. Okay. What a day. What an episode. Great time as always. Appreciate the heck out of you guys for tuning in. We'll have a different video later this week. Schedule TBD. Back to school night is a thing for both of us this week. So that's always fun. But we will have some kind of coverage of the practice squad, any other moves that happen. And then next week we are game week, so it should be a fun time.
Yay.
All right, you guys. Thanks so much for tuning in. This has been another episode of the Guilty as Charged podcast. As always, bolt up.